Why do you think we got so sheepish about, the reality of like animal slaughter and butchery? Like we when I was a kid, like we would often, go to the butchers and you would see the butcher preparing the animal in the back. And it was like a visual thing, and I saw it and I witnessed it, and didn't grow numb to it, but you understand what's happening. But I feel like now people just aren't exposed to that, aren't witness to it. So it's like this alien weird thing that happens somewhere that that becomes almost like a scary thing of like,
because it is a scary thing.
I'm gonna eat this food, but I don't want to know about like how it was butchered or prepared, because that seems scary.
Well, I think it's scary because it's done in these large slaughterhouses, right? Like, and it's done like they're broken down in the slaughterhouse. It's not done at butcher shops as often, right?
So you think as it became more and more industrialized, people wanted to detach themselves more and more from it because of the horrors of it?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Like the major slaughterhouses, there's no windows for a reason, right?
Right.
And like all those vegan documentaries are like, it's evil. It is evil.
Yeah.
Right? But there's another way.
Yeah.
Like I get split mung beans and they're flown in from China or Canada. And it's like, okay, well, this is a vegan option, but it's not grown anywhere near me, you know? And like, they're like, well, that's...
And it had to be flown from somewhere, which takes a lot of gas and fuel.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people think about like footprint and like, oh, cows are causing the environment to be, go to shit. It's like, no, what's causing the environment to go to shit is that you need fucking goji berries from the Himalayas. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
Like, we live in a place where you can get every single item here. You can get your vinegar, your oil, your wine, your salt, your meat, your veggies. Why? Why do you need it flown over?
Yeah. It's kind of terrifying to me that as a lot of these small farms struggle and people have to sell their cows because they can't afford to feed them. While that's all happening, Bill Gates is buying more and more land to become, the biggest farmer, quote unquote, soy farmer in the world, and with the intent of course, preparing these kind of chemical foods, because he believes that like we're going to ultimately end up eating chemical foods. And it's just this weird, scary time of like stopping doing something very natural and demonizing that as like evil, whilst someone like Bill Gates creates something that's completely artificial and chemical, but that almost seems to be like hailed as like the savior or the way forward. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, this is completely absurd.
He just wants all the power. And it's really fascinating. Like, billionaires are hoarders. I'm sorry to my clients, but you guys have so much money that you don't need all that money. You couldn't possibly spend it in your whole lifetime or your children's lifetime. If I was Bill Gates, I'd feed the world, and not with soy. Like, it's absolutely ludicrous. But these men, they want to be like, look, I'm a savior. I built a fucking rocket ship. Like, what the fuck? Who cares?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want to be the person who fed everyone, who housed everybody, cleaned up the street?
Yeah. I mean, if you genuinely cared, why would you not subsidize all the small farms and say like, okay, we're going to go back. This is clearly the best way. Yes, it's going to take some investment. Yes, it's going to take some time, but we can do this. Here's some fucking money.
Right. And well, I mean, that's the problem though. I feel like so many people don't have, like, they're so short-sighted. It's like Bill Gates wants to do this in his lifetime, but it's so short-sighted. It's like, play it all the way out.
Yeah.
Like, what are the effects, the long-term effects of your actions?
Right.
I feel like billionaires think, not all of them, but like a lot of them think like, well, I know better than everyone else. Right. So I'm going to I have the power, so I'm going to do the thing because I've made all this money. And so I'm going to create the system that I believe is better. But, they're not talking to the farmers and asking them what they need. They're not going to these regenerative farms and being like, how can we regenerate the soil on this earth?
Right.
Like, we have destroyed the soil. It's unbelievable. But there is a growing movement of regenerative farms, whether it's vegetables or meat. Yeah. Where people are trying to bring nutrients back into the soil. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah, and like we said, like there are enough people out there with enough money to make that movement a real thing, like a real powerful thing, if they would just like pull their head out their ass and think long term instead of short term. And that kind of thinking, that kind of short term thinking is how we got into trouble in the first place.
Yeah.
Like post World War II, like how do we grow food cheaply to feed the masses. Well, if we use this gas, if we use these chemicals that are left over from the war, we can make food like we can grow crops year round. We can just constantly crop, grow, crop. And that's what destroyed the soil, because we were only thinking like, how do we feed everybody right now? And in that short-term thinking, we create long-term problems.
Right.
Instead of thinking about long-term solutions. It's always seems to be like, well, I have the power now, and what my actions now is how I'm going to be judged. I don't care what happens in 20 years. I care about now, because people are going to vote for me because I'm going to solve the problem now.
Right.
Rather than thinking like, what's going to be good for the planet in 20 years.
Yeah, it's pretty terrifying.
Yeah, it really is.
But also, I mean, I think there is a sense of hope. There are
Yes.
people doing the right things. I just did a dinner in Ojai at this place called Ojai Roots, and it's a regenerative no-till farm. They grow vegetables, and I mean, they really care.
Yeah.
And they're like trying to spread out to the community, and it's beautiful, and the food is delicious, and you can tell that there's a ton of nutrients. I went there, and they have tons of acres. I don't know how many. And he pointed to the wall and he goes, this is the only tools we use. And it was like a rake and a shovel and like nothing. They don't have a tiller, right?
That's
They're not
awesome.
like tilling the land. They're not destroying it. They're not killing animals to raise food. So I think that people are taking their money and putting it towards something really good. I think what sells also is selling the bad news, right? Telling us like, look at all this evil that's happening. Up next on the news, blah, 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 killed blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of, I think, the scare tactics that they use to be like, oh no, things are going bad. Hold on to all your, 1 bars. That's me. I eat the 1 bars. And like make sure that you have all your like, fun snack foods. Make sure you have all your junk that will stay in your cabinet, like you said, for years. Instead of, trying to have conversations with the people around you. What are you doing? What do you have in your cabinet?
Right.
Do you have a chest freezer? What do you have in your chest freezer? How can we collaborate and make sure, like what happened during COVID when people were taking all of the toilet paper? Like, what the fuck? And then selling it from their garages at like quadruple the price.
Yeah.
We're living in a weird time, right? I think it just really comes back for me to bringing everything really small. Like make it small, make your community small, get to know the people around you.
Yeah.
And like, and advocate for yourself.